I hate it when some motherfucker comes along and tells me how my shit should run, who never rode in it or drove it in the first place. Go back to sleep, folks. It's all a conspiracy theory. There is no concerted effort behind the scenes to undermine our rights and our Constitution. Oh, hell no. Even though, for the most part, these people have documented the things that they've been doing along the way. If only people were smart enough to open their eyes and actually take a look. So let me tell you once again about a parallel that I've experienced in my life that we are all quite literally living today. Daddy didn't sexually assault my sister and my mother either when he was drunk and abused them to the point where they lost their freaking minds. Where my mother thought it was okay to call me worthless, stupid, and a waste of human flesh, and say, in no uncertain terms, that she wished I was never born. Where it drove my sister to the brink of insanity, where she thought it was within her rights to beat and abuse the one person that was available because she couldn't do it to the person that was abusing her. And then to have those very same people who on repeatedly or on more than one occasion had stated how much they loved and cared for their little boy, deny their actions again and again. Anybody see the parallel yet, or should I keep going? Transference is a real thing. And when people don't have an outlet for their stress, they will take it out on whoever's available, whether they deserve it or not. Because in their minds, when they're abused in such a way, they think they have a right to do so. Because their innocence was taken. Because their freedom and free will was encroached upon. You either break to abuse, or your will becomes like iron. And there's nothing you hate more than people who would prey on others. Or it takes over your life and becomes a way of life where you feel as if you have the right to take advantage of whoever you want along the way. And in doing so, in some twisted fucking way, it makes people feel powerful. And they only get bolder. And they only do it more until somebody finally says, that is enough of that bullshit. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Walking away or ignoring the problem is not an option. Because it still goes on, even if you're not around to see it. Because nobody stood up, nobody had the balls to point out the fact that people were being used and abused. Back then, I didn't have the nerve. I didn't have the guts to point out what should have been pointed out. I didn't have the wherewithal because I believed the things that I was told. That I was stupid, that I was worthless, that I shouldn't even have been born in the first fucking place. Now I see the exact same thing happening in this country as people spend their time looking the other way, saying it's not on them, it ain't part of their life, so they don't have to participate in what amounts to defense of the innocent. What a cop-out. What a pile of freaking shit. They hate us because they hate themselves. It's just that simple. The people who run this bullshit at the top know what they've done. And their hearts are so twisted with hate, so accustomed to abuse and abusing other people. They like it. They think it's just freaking hunky-dory. When the reality of it is, it ain't. But by looking the other way, we condone it. We let it grow every day that we don't say that's enough. Well, I protected those people in my life because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. When nothing could be further from the truth. I looked away in order to benefit their freedom, when the reality of it is I only enabled them to do evil unto others. And here's the rub, the really ironic part. Some other asshole, years later, comes along and finds out about it and uses it as a method of control over these people. Quite literally, making them his freaking slaves. And if that isn't what's been going on in this country for quite some time and used as a method of control, then chemtrails are freaking healthy. I know these assholes, and I know how they think, because I was raised to be one of them, yet I choose to be one of you. My biggest frustration is trying to communicate to people who weren't raised in that world, who weren't touched by those horrible insults, the abuse, the constant torture of having to live that life, of what it's like, because they've never experienced it themselves. Or if they have, they want to pretend like it doesn't exist, because some cutoff switch in their mind makes them think that that makes life bearable, that makes it okay. When the cold hard reality of that is, it only makes it possible for more people to suffer at the hands of evil. I have tried with several people who actually have experienced some of the things that I've experienced and understand what's going on, to finally get them to come out of their shells and at the very least speak out against what goes on right under our noses. And out of all of those people, I've only been successful one time. So for the most part, people concentrate on producing content that they think other people want to hear or want to see. When times have become so pressing that they should only be talking about one thing. The abuse that we all have to suffer at the hands of these freaking socialist authoritarians. I'm on my way right now to the bank to close out my savings account because I have spent so much time and effort working on this that I have exhausted all of my resources. But that's fine. If I lose everything in this fight, so be it. And even if it takes my life, I'm cool with that. Because it's what has to be done, even if people don't want to freaking hear it. I can't get into the specifics of it, but years ago,
I used to roll with some special forces guys. And they said adamantly, and it makes perfect sense to me, there is no higher honor than to lose your life in defense of the innocent. And when we back away, we cheapen our lives just a little bit whenever we do. So let me tell you what I know from practical experience. If all I ever did was sit around and talk about fixing this car, it would have never gotten done. And just like the things that go on with this country, unless people are willing to participate, willing to roll up their sleeves, and yes, maybe even roll around in the grease and the mud and get a little dirty, this shit ain't never gonna be fixed. And unless the people are willing to open their minds to the possibilities that what is called a so-called conspiracy theory that we don't have a lot of proof of could actually be true because the pieces fit all too well, we're screwed. And we're all going to find out the hard way, or you will at least, because I won't be here, that slaves don't get to ascend to anything. And when we look the other way, it only allows evil to grow. And eventually, all there will be is masters and slaves.